This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered formal legal advice. Please note that the policies of your company and laws in your country may vary. Also, the views expressed by the host or his guests do not necessarily reflect the views of any other company or entity.
Welcome, everyone, to the My Friend in HR podcast. My name is Jasani Courtney, your friend and your guide into the elusive world of human resources and your path to career fulfillment. All right, friends, so let's address the very large, slightly awkward elephant in the room. Yes, it's been a minute since you last heard a fresh episode from My Friend in HR. And by a minute, I mean, well, let's just say your boy needed to hit pause for a bit of rebalance on a few things. Between family, who kind of still insists on seeing my face every so often, work that doesn't magically do itself, and a few side projects, I had to make sure my own life wasn't out here violating labor laws. But here's the thing. While the podcast feed may have been quiet, My Friend in HR has not been napping on the job. We've got a stack of fresh content ready to roll, including our brand new YouTube series called HR on the Rocks, where I'll be mixing up a cocktail or two while we stir up a little real talk about leadership, careers, and all the fun in between. Plus, I'll be inviting some amazing guests to jump in on these conversations. And yes, we're adding more videos so you can see all my questionable hand gestures in glorious HD. And get this, I finally learned how to use Riverside. At least I think I did. I'll let you be the judge when you finally see how smoothly or chaotically this all turns out. So buckle up, grab your drink of choice, unless you're driving during your morning commute, and let's get back into it. Because My Friend in HR is officially clocked back in and ready to work overtime for your own career fulfillment. So it's happened. You've listened to your good old friend in HR, taken these pro tips for absolutely nailing the interview, and guess what? You've been promoted. So now what? This episode is all about helping you navigate this exciting yet daunting journey. Over the past few months, I've talked to a number of senior leaders who have had similar journeys. What you are about to get are pro tips from a number of executives. I've compiled recurring themes and picked the best of the best, and also identified potential pitfalls. So, are you ready to level up your management game? All right, then let's go. You're about to get some great information to help you thrive in your new role. So, going straight into it for pro tip number 1. Always maintain professional maturity. So what does this mean? When we talk about professional maturity, how you handle your transition says a lot about you as a leader and as a professional. First things first, you need to stay fully engaged in your current role until the very end. I get it. Once you've accepted that new job, your mind is already on what's next. But mentally checking out too soon can leave a bad impression. And you want to make sure that when you leave, your role is in better shape than when you found it. That means being present, tying up loose ends, and ensuring your responsibilities are smoothly transitioned to your successor. Now, I know it's tempting to start networking and setting up meetings for your new gig during work hours, but just don't do it. Keep those activities outside of work so you're not giving off the vibe that you've already left the building before your last day. Another thing to watch out for is the timing of your transition. Sometimes your new manager will be so eager to get you started right away without much thought about your current responsibilities. This is where you need to maintain your integrity and set some clear boundaries. It's important to manage expectations on both sides so that you leave on good terms and start your new role with professionalism. And let's be real. Sometimes people leave because they just can't stand their current manager or current situation. And I don't blame you for wanting to escape that shipwreck as soon as possible. But remember, a bad boss does not give you an excuse to be a bad employee. The deficiencies of others do not define our level of success. No matter how challenging the situation is, always take the high road and show professionalism and courtesy until your last day. To be honest, I was in this exact position before. To avoid any tension, I scheduled a meeting with both my old and new manager to align on expectations. It was definitely awkward for the first few minutes, but in the end, both managers appreciated the clarity and it made my transition that much smoother. At the end of the day, your reputation matters. In the corporate world, your name carries weight, and how you exit a role can follow you much longer than you think. Negative behaviors, last-minute disengagement, or burning bridges can spread faster than an email chain. Don't give anyone the opportunity to tarnish your professional image. Stay engaged, stay professional, and leave every job with your integrity intact. Now let's move on to pro tip number 2. You need to set clear boundaries with former peers. One of the biggest challenges for new managers, especially when they've been promoted from within their own current team, is figuring out how to set boundaries with their former peers. It's a tricky balance because on one hand, you don't want to come off as arrogant or like you've suddenly changed overnight. But on the other hand, you're now in a position of authority, which comes with new responsibilities and expectations. That shift needs to be acknowledged, and tackling it head on is absolutely critical for your success. A common mistake that new managers make is avoiding this conversation altogether. More than half the time, people who are promoted from within don't take the time to establish clear boundaries and just hope that things will naturally fall into place. Here's a spoiler alert: they won't. If you don't set those expectations up front, it leaves room for confusion, frustration, and worst of all, the potential for your team to lose respect for your leadership. The reality is, you have to walk a fine line. You don't need to start acting distant or overly formal overnight, but you do need to have a mature and rational conversation with your team about the shift in dynamics. You are now their leader, which means your role has changed. You're responsible for performance, decision-making, and the overall success of your new team, which means things can't operate the way they did before. Now, this doesn't mean that you're suddenly above them, but you do have a different set of expectations to uphold, and it's important to acknowledge that. Now, let's address the social side of things. If your coworkers turned direct reports want to celebrate your promotion, look, go for it. Enjoy the moment, have fun, and celebrate your achievement. But once the celebration is over, it's time to get real. Your working relationships need structure, and your team needs to understand what's changing and what's staying the same. One of the worst things you can do is make an abrupt change in your behavior without any explanation. If you suddenly stop chatting with your old work friends or start making all the decisions behind closed doors without their input, it's going to feel like a complete personality shift, and that can create resentment. Instead of pulling away or becoming overly formal, be transparent about your new role and how you plan to communicate, set goals, and collaborate with the team going forward. A simple, honest conversation can go a long way in setting the right tone. Now, what happens if you have a best friend at work? Someone you've been tight with for years, you've exchanged memes about the manager? Well, guess what? You're the manager now. This is an area where things can get even trickier. You have to be upfront about the fact that your relationship must evolve. It doesn't mean that you're no longer friends, but it does mean that certain aspects of your work dynamic will need to shift. If you're always hanging out with the same person every lunch break, whispering inside jokes in meetings, or spending all of your time with just one person, it's simply not a good look as a new manager. Even if you know you're not showing favoritism, in the corporate jungle, perception dictates reality. If your team senses even a hint of bias, it can damage your credibility instantly. It doesn't take much for people to assume that someone close to you is getting better assignments, more leniency, or inside information that others don't have access to. And once that perception sets in, it's hard to undo. All right, let's switch gears a bit. Imagine walking into a brand new organization where you're the new face in town, stepping into a managerial role. It's a mix of excitement and nerves, right? You're not just learning the ropes, you're setting the tone. Now, stepping into a new company as a manager is like being handed the keys to a car you've never driven before. You have to figure out where the controls, the quirks, the best routes to get to where you need to go, as well as determine which floor has the best coffee maker. You're in the driver's seat, trying to figure out the dashboard, hoping the brakes work, and attempting to look confident while everyone's expecting you to floor it. But here's the thing. You don't have the luxury of anonymity. Everyone knew you were coming, and trust me, they've been talking about you. Even though you may not see it, folks are curious and wondering about how this new person coming in from the outside is going to perform. You're stepping into an environment where the first impressions matter immensely. You're the new kid on the block, and everyone's sizing you up, wondering how you fit in, what changes you'll bring, and if you'll understand their culture. It's like walking on stage where everyone already has a script, and you're expected to catch up. But hey, that's part of the adventure, right? It's your chance to bring fresh perspectives while embracing the existing dynamics. Now, stepping into this role means that you've got to balance learning and leading. You're not just figuring out processes, you're building relationships from scratch. And remember, while everyone's been curious about you, you also need to be equally curious about them. It's really a two-way street. Taking on a managerial role in an unfamiliar company can feel like stepping into a fully scripted movie where everyone already knows their lines, the backstories, and the inside jokes. And here you are, flipping through the first few blank pages of your script, just trying to keep up. But remember, you were hired for a reason. Whether it's to solve a problem, bring fresh ideas, or lead a team towards better results, remember, you've got what it takes. You worked hard to get here, and you deserve this. Your challenge isn't whether you belong in this role. It's how you navigate your early days so that you set the right tone, build trust, and establish your leadership presence. Also, while some of your new colleagues may question your motives and your initial actions as you are new to the organization, do not allow anyone, and I mean anyone, to make you feel like you aren't deserving. The interviewing phase is over. Don't let peers with their own baggage make you feel like every meeting is another interview to revalidate you being selected. So how do you make this transition as smooth as possible? It's not about making big moves fast. It's about strategic, intentional leadership from day one. So, pro tip number 1 in terms of getting a new role with a new organization. Learn the company culture with a SWOT analysis. When you step into a new company as a manager, one of the worst mistakes you can make is assuming that what worked in your last job will work here. No two organizations are exactly the same. What made you successful before may not translate in this new environment. So your first priority should be understanding the company's culture, structure, and its challenges. And what's the best way to do that? I would start with a good old SWOT analysis. For those who are unfamiliar, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Think of it as a strategic blueprint for figuring out where you fit into this new company and where you can have the biggest impact. So here's how you break it down. Number 1, strengths. Take a look at what's working well. Before coming in and making any changes, take a step back and look at what's already working. Every company has strengths that keep it moving forward. So ask yourself, are there standout teams that drive success? What processes or innovations set this company apart from its competitors? Does the company have strong customer loyalty or a great reputation throughout the industry? Identifying these strengths will help you understand what to preserve and build upon, rather than unintentionally dismantling something that actually works. Weaknesses. Take a look at what's not working. Just as important as knowing what's great is knowing what's not so great. Pay attention to the consistent pain points people mention, especially during your first few weeks when you have fresh eyes. Are there recurring complaints about communication? Do employees feel disconnected from leadership? Is there high turnover morale? Things like that. Weaknesses might not be obvious at first, but you can start to piece them together by listening carefully during meetings, watching how teams interact, and paying attention to unspoken frustrations. Opportunities. Where can you make an impact? Now that you understand the lay of the land, it's time to figure out where you can add real value. Your job as leader isn't to maintain the status quo. It's to identify areas where you can help the company grow and improve. Is there an outdated process that needs streamlining? Are there any opportunities to improve collaboration between departments? Could mentoring or leadership development fill a gap in the organization? The key here is not to assume that every problem needs an immediate fix. Some challenges are deeply ingrained in the company culture and require time to address. Prioritize the ones where you can deliver results without disrupting the organization too soon, and always look for the low-hanging fruit. Number 4 is threats. What challenges could get in your way? Now, every workplace has challenges. Some are internal, while others are industry-wide or even global. Before you jump in with new ideas, consider the barriers that could slow you down. Is the company facing budget constraints that could limit resources? Are employees burnt out or disengaged? Are there any external factors like market disruptions or regulatory changes that could impact decision-making? Being aware of these potential obstacles will help you navigate your first few months more strategically and ensure that you're setting realistic expectations for yourself and your team. Now that you know what to look for, let's talk about where in the world you can obtain all this information. So, in terms of internal resources, start by observing meetings. Pay attention to body language, tone, and engagement. People energized, or do they seem already checked out? Ask thoughtful questions. Don't just ask surface-level things. Dive deeper into why certain processes exist and how employees feel about them. Listen more than you talk. After all, the man upstairs gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Your goal early on is to absorb information, not to make immediate changes that can be avoided. Check platforms like Glassdoor and LinkedIn. Employee reviews can give you insight into the company's reputation and culture. Look for patterns. Not every negative review should be taken at face value, but if multiple people mention the same issues, like a lack of career growth or poor communication, there's probably some level of truth to it. Remember, the goal of a SWOT analysis isn't to judge, it's to understand. It helps you step into your role fully aware of the dynamics at play so you can make smart, informed decisions. Here are some additional tips. Be observant. Look and listen for the unofficial leaders. These are people who may not have fancy titles but wield significant influence over their peers. They're the go-to problem solvers, the morale boosters, and sometimes the quiet voices steering the ship behind the scenes. Seek them out and listen to their perspectives. They often hold valuable insight into the team's dynamic strengths and pain points. Building relationships with these individuals can help you earn credibility faster than just sticking to formal hierarchies. And here's a big warning. Don't fall into the trap of only speaking to people at your level or higher. If you're the new director or VP and spend all of your time with other executives, your team will peg you as another stuffed shirt on the top floor who has no idea what it takes to deliver results. Nothing will alienate your team faster than giving off the impression that you're disconnected from the people doing the actual work. Start building relationships. Relationships are the lifeblood of your success in your new role, especially at a new company. Start by scheduling one-on-one meetings with your direct reports, key players, and yes, again, those unofficial leaders. Ask open-ended questions like, what's the one thing this team does exceptionally well? Or what's the one thing you think could make a big impact? Make sure these conversations are about them, not you. No need to give them your full resume and justify why you're there. Showing genuine curiosity and listening actively will help you build trust. Also, communicate your vision thoughtfully. People want to know what kind of leader you're going to be, but they also want the reassurance that you're not here to shake everything up without a good reason. Share a simple vision for your first 90 days. For example, my priority right now is to understand how we work and identify opportunities where we can build on our successes together. This approach shows that you're focused on collaboration and learning, not just for making change for the sake of change. Remember, starting fresh in a new company is your chance to write your own script, but it starts with listening, learning, and earning trust. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Connect with every level of the organization and lean into your strengths. Remember, you're here for a reason, and you've got what it takes to make an impact. Also, do not undervalue the need to build a leadership brand. As you settle in, you'll need to think about the leadership brand you're creating. Are you approachable? Are you consistent? Do people feel like they can trust you and have their back? These are the questions that your team will ask themselves whether you realize it or not. One way to solidify your brand is by being visible. Don't be the leader who only shows up when there's a problem. Walk the floor, join meetings that aren't strictly leadership level, and celebrate wins, big or small. Another way, said it before, and that's consistency. If you set expectations, follow through. Nothing kills trust faster than a leader who says one thing but does a completely different thing. Your team wants to know that when you commit to something, you'll deliver. You also need to make sure you take in the big picture. Remember, typically external hires aren't brought in just to maintain the status quo. If that was the case, they would have probably promoted from within. You're here to lead, inspire, and make an impact. By taking the time to understand the culture, building trust across levels, and tackling challenges thoughtfully, you'll set yourself up for long-term success. Every new role is a balancing act. It's about learning when to listen, when to act, and when to take a step back and reflect. But here's the good news. If you approach this journey with humility, curiosity, and confidence, you'll not only win over your team, you'll thrive. Now let me set the scene of another potential pitfall that far too many newly promoted leaders get led into. Pretend it's Monday morning. You've walked in, barely unbuttoned your new sports coat that you bought over the weekend, and before you can even take a deep breath, the higher-ups hit you with this line. "We brought you in to shake things up." You like that voice? Yeah, that's my executive voice. "We brought you in to shake things up. This team isn't performing the way we want. Your predecessor didn't move fast enough, and we need you to assess the team and make necessary changes. Oh, and we want this done yesterday." It's like being asked to rebuild the engine of a car while it's speeding down the freeway. Here's the thing. Yes, it is absolutely critical to understand the perspectives of your stakeholders. After all, these are the people who control your budget, your resources, and let's be real, they decide whether or not you get invited to the holiday party. Their expectations absolutely matter. But, and this is a big but. Well, crap, now I'm thinking about that Sir Mix-a-Lot song from the 90s. But seriously, you need to approach this carefully. Rushing in and shaking things up just to appear decisive can actually cause more damage than good. Sure, you might want to impress senior leaders for a moment with bold, immediate action. But what about the team you're actually leading? If they see you as a tornado in a business suit, wrecking everything in your path, their trust in you will evaporate instantly. When that happens, your leadership effectiveness takes a serious hit. And suddenly, you're not just dealing with stakeholder pressure, you're also trying to rebuild credibility with the people that actually get the work done. Now I get it. Sometimes you are really walking into a dumpster fire. Maybe performance is tanking, maybe morale is at an all-time low. Maybe there are legitimate, immediate problems that require action now, not 6 months from now. If that's the case, prioritization is everything. Before making drastic changes, take a moment to assess what's really going on. Ask yourself, is this team underperforming because they're unmotivated, undertrained, or just simply exhausted? Is the issue something bigger, like a lack of clear direction, poor resource allocation, maybe unrealistic expectations from leadership, or is it poor communication? Are there existing processes that were actually working well, but leadership doesn't even recognize them? This is where great leaders set themselves apart from reactive managers. Instead of blindly making changes to satisfy executive pressure, you should take time to diagnose the real issue. One of the best ways to balance stakeholder expectations while maintaining credibility with your team is to learn how to push back strategically. Now, let's be clear. I'm not saying you should flat out reject leadership's requests. That is a great way to put a target on your back. But what you can do is shift the conversation to smart, sustainable change instead of knee-jerk reactions. So if you're presented with something like this from senior leadership, try something like this. I completely understand the need to drive better results, and I am committed to making that happen. I want to make sure that we're making the right changes, not just quick ones. My plan is to assess the situation within the first few weeks, get some real insight from my team, and come back with some targeted recommendations that will have long-term impact. This statement does a couple of things. First, it reassures leadership that you are taking action and not ignoring their concerns. It also sets expectations that you are strategic, not reckless. And trust me, while many stakeholders love decisiveness, what they love even more are results. If you can show that your approach is thoughtful and focused on long-term success, they'll usually respect that. Because here's what happens if you rush in, make changes for the sake of change, and it backfires. Those exact same stakeholders who told you to shake things up will now be saying, well, we didn't mean for you to shake everything up. And just like that, you'll be the one taking the fall. Again, managing stakeholder expectations is a balancing act. On one hand, you have to acknowledge leadership's concerns and show that you're proactive. On the other hand, you need to protect your credibility with your team and avoid making hasty decisions that create more harm than good. The best way to do that? Take action, but take smart action. Listen first, then decide. Understand the real challenges before making drastic changes. And then also communicate your approach. Let stakeholders know that you're committed to results, but that those results need to be built on solid strategy. Don't fall into the urgency trap. Not everything is an emergency, no matter how urgent they may make it seem. And making the wrong move quickly is worse than making the right move a little bit later. At the end of the day, you were brought in to lead, not react. Keep that in mind, and you'll be able to navigate stakeholder expectations while building a strong, lasting foundation as a leader. Also, remember to take care of your employees, because metrics don't run companies, people do. And this is where I see a lot of new leaders completely miss the mark. They step into their new role and become obsessed with KPIs, metrics, and trying to sound impressive in meetings. They want to show how data-driven they are, throw in some fancy corporate buzzwords, and prove that they belong in the big leagues. Meanwhile, the very people who are expected to deliver those results, they're just sitting there feeling invisible, wondering if their new manager even knows their name, let alone understand what it takes to do what it is they actually do. And that right there is how you fail before you even get started. I tell leaders all the time that your company doesn't run on spreadsheets. It runs on people, and companies don't thrive because of metrics or shiny PowerPoint presentations. They thrive because of the people behind those numbers. Yes, goals and performance indicators absolutely matter. But if you don't take the time to actually understand your team, those numbers won't mean a damn thing. So to kickstart your role as the guardian of your most valuable asset, and I know that sounds cliche, but here are some great data points that you need to research. Try to quickly determine the following details about your new team. Who's been stuck in the same role for 5 years? Are they there because they love it or because they've been overlooked? Who's quietly killing it behind the scenes but never gets any recognition? On the flip side, who's just going through the motions? Who's disengaged? And who may need a little spark to reignite their passion? Your first job as a leader isn't to hit targets, it's to unlock the potential of your team who are responsible for those targets. You want to be the leader who grows people, not just numbers. Think of leadership like gardening. If you want a thriving garden, You don't just throw seeds in the dirt and expect magic. You water, you prune, you nurture. You make sure that the conditions are right for growth. Now translate that to your team. If you want a higher engagement, better performance, and lower turnover, you have to invest in your people. And here's the catch. This won't show up in a fancy quarterly report right away. But you know what will show up? A team that is more engaged, employees who actually care about their work, stronger performance because people feel valued and supported. When people feel like their manager genuinely cares about their career and their growth, they will run through walls for you. On the flip side, if employees feel like they're just another cog in the machine, another name on the spreadsheet that nobody really cares about, they'll be halfway out the door before your first all-hands meeting ends. Remember the simple leadership equation. Take care of your people, and your people will take care of your results. At the end of the day, leadership isn't about looking impressive. It's about impact. And the biggest impact you can make isn't just hitting the numbers. It's building people. Take care of your employees, and guess what? They'll take care of your business, clients, and those oh-so-important KPIs. And if you do that consistently, you won't just be a leader your team respects. You'll be the kind of leader that they remember. So now let's tie all this together. First of all, welcome to the balancing act of leadership, where managing up is just as important as managing down. Stakeholders want results, employees want support, and you're in the middle juggling chainsaws while wearing a blindfold. No pressure, right? But here's the good news. If you stay thoughtful and intentional, you can nail this. Stakeholders might want you to come in with guns blazing, but remember, quick fixes often lead to long-term headaches. Be strategic, build trust, and prioritize your team, because at the end of the day, your team's success is your success. And if you get that right, you'll win over everybody from the boardroom to the break room. Now, let's hit the rewind button for a second because I just dropped a lot on you. Here's a quick recap to tie everything we've talked about together. Whether you're stepping into a leadership role within the organization you've called home for years or walking into a completely new company, there are lessons here for every step of the way. If you've been promoted from within, your leaderships are your greatest asset, but they can also be your biggest challenge. Setting clear boundaries, treating people fairly, and navigating old friendships with your new responsibilities is key. Remember, being a great leader doesn't mean having all the answers. It means earning the trust through transparency and consistency. Your team will respect you if you show that you're learning and growing right alongside them. If you're stepping into a new company, it's all about building from the ground up. Take the time to learn the culture, not just the surface level policies, but the real dynamics that make the company tick. Be observant, especially of those unofficial leaders who often hold more influence than a title might suggest. Manage stakeholder expectations thoughtfully. Remember, you were hired for a reason, but rushing into changes without understanding the lay of the land can do more harm than good. And most importantly, take care of your people. You don't get results from processes or KPIs alone. You get them from engaged, motivated individuals who feel seen and supported. Leadership is a journey, not a destination. Your first 90 days aren't about proving you're perfect. They're about setting the foundation for trust, understanding, and collaboration. By listening more than you speak, staying curious, and staying grounded, you'll be well on your way to building not just a strong team, but a legacy of great leadership. So here's my challenge to you. As you take your next steps in leadership, whether that's tomorrow, next month, or next year, remember to keep your focus on what matters most: your people, your purpose, and your impact. Whew, well, that'll do it for this episode. Remember, if you want to connect with me, you can always follow me on LinkedIn under Jasani Courtney. You can also follow me on my new Instagram at myfriendin_HR, or as I like to call it, HR After Dark. Oh yeah. And be on the lookout for more information on my new YouTube channel. Either way, you don't want to miss any of our content. If you have a question you would like for me to answer on the podcast, feel free to send me an email at myfriendinhr@gmail.com. On a final note, if you like the content we're providing here and you find it helpful, I would truly appreciate it if you would take a moment to throw your friend here a 5-star rating and a comment. And remember, as always, folks, that your job is meant to support your life. Your life is not meant to support your job. Until next time, my friends.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered formal legal advice. Please note that the policies of your company and laws in your country may vary. Also, the views expressed by the host or his guests do not necessarily reflect the views of any other company or entity.